GWATA TV gives you a first look at North Central Washington's business news. You'll hear from our local business, tech, and education companies as Jenny discusses hot topics and current events with some of the best innovators and pioneers in North Central Washington.
Hi everyone, and welcome to GWATA TV. My name is Cheri Dudek-Kuhn, and I am the CEO over at Orchard Corset, but I am also a GWATA Advisory Board member, which is why I'm here today filling in for Jenny. Today we are going to be talking with Alex Garcia from Field Clock. Field Clock is a data collection app that was actually invented and created by local farmers, and it is really reinventing how we use technology out in agriculture in the fields and in our orchards. So before we talk with Alex, I want to show you a quick video that shows us how Field Clock works. We'll see you back after the break. everyone, and welcome back to GWATA TV. I am here with Alex Garcia. Thank you for coming, Alex.
You're welcome.
Before we dive into Field Clock, Alex, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? You have a pretty interesting background.
Yeah, so I was born in Mexico, came to the United States right around the age of 4. My dad had been coming up here for several years to essentially pick apples and pears and do the regular migrant work, followed up as some of his brothers. So I grew up in the area, grew up in Kashmir specifically, went to school there, big fan of Kashmir. And so ended up going to Eastern, to college, took off to Eastern over in Cheney, just outside of Spokane, and ended up getting into sales early on in my career. And that just essentially got me to where I'm at here today, working for Field Clock. So that's just a little bit of my background.
A little bit. So what really got you interested in Field Clock in the first place? Because I know that agriculture wasn't where you started.
Right.
Maybe you can give us a little bit of history about some of where your work background that kind of led you to where you are now.
Sure. Yeah, so I wasn't really looking to come back to the Valley. I never really thought I would end up back here just based on the fact that I had these high aspirations of making a lot of money and being in like these big companies and working in the big city. And one of my best friends, Doug Flick, he works for a chemical company here in town, Chamberlain, and he knows, he's really good friends with one of our principals, and by default, he got me into the picture and flew me up here, interviewed me, and it was just a perfect match. I was able to come back home and be with my family. And at the same time do something that I'm really familiar with, kind of get back into what I grew up doing with what my family's always done. So it was a perfect match for us to start working together.
Nice.
Yeah.
So about how long ago was that? Can you kind of give us a little brief history of how Field Clock got started?
Sure.
And about when you kind of entered into that picture?
Yeah. So Field Clock started to being developed in like 2015, before harvest of 15. And several of the principals essentially started using the app and working all the bugs and getting everything through with basically being guinea pigs of their own product in their own orchards, basically between Orondo and East Wenatchee.
Mm-hmm.
So once they figured all that out and they were able to determine that, hey, this is production ready, we need to be able to start making some revenue off of it and start getting some clients and getting some better feedback from paying clients. That's essentially when they launched in 2017 is when I came into the picture as the director of sales. So from then on, it's just been going after clients. We had a really good connection with a lot of growers in the area because 2 of the principals are very well known in the industry. So it was a pretty easy transition to go after their friends, essentially, go after their growers that they do business with, they talk to every day. So that's essentially how everything kind of got rolling.
So what are some of the kind of the big problems and issues that Field Clock is solving for both, not just farmers and owners, but the managers of those fields as well and crops?
Yeah, so the number one thing that we like to focus on is labor control. And control in the sense of who's doing what, where, why, when, how many people, what's going on, what's the activity. It just really allows people to connect with their farm. A lot of our clients that jump on don't have any systems. They're using pen and paper. They have a clipboard of some sort where they've outlined, what they want the crew bosses or the managers to keep track of out in the field. But nobody really has visibility to that until either the end of the day or sometimes even after payroll or after even a harvest, which is essentially what we felt like was a big issue. And then with that being said, there's so many laws that are affecting our growers today that are constantly kind of challenging them and forcing them to have a better understanding of what they have going on in their orchards or their fields. So we help maintain some of that stuff. We help control and give them a visibility of some of the legal aspects of the business as well, kind of on the HR side of things. So those are some of the big things that we kind of focus is making sure people understand what's going on and also keeping up with laws and all the documentation that needs to go along with it.
So, I have a little bit of farming background in my history too, and I know that very often farmers, growers in particular, really run on a razor-thin margin, right? So has this product really helped them to increase that productivity and be much more efficient about some of those processes?
Yeah, we feel like it definitely, because it gives them a really good view into what they're actually doing out in the field. Yeah, the farmers are squeezed every day in terms of what they can make off their land and the fruit that they harvest. It seems like the cost of doing business is going up, but the price that they get paid out from the warehousing side of things and the marketing side is staying kind of relatively the same. So we help. Labor is the most expensive thing a grower has going on in their operation, and that's a given. That's a fact. So our whole thing was, if we can help manage the labor and not allow people to waste time on things that maybe they don't need to be doing right now, or also just making sure people are actually showing up to work when they're supposed to be and accounting for their time properly. Right. I'm not saying people like to steal or like to lie, but I think it happens, unfortunately, in any industry. And if whatever we can do to help mitigate that and help prevent that stuff and keep people honest, our whole philosophy is pay people for what they do. Right. If they work 20 hours, you pay them for the 20 hours. But if they worked 15, why should the grower pay them 20? Because they don't know what's going on out there. So it's just kind of keeping people accountable.
Well, it would help mitigate lost or damaged. When you're using paper and pencil and punch tickets, I can imagine between where those start and where they end up, things can happen. Yeah. And this way, that data is just there in real time. That's really fantastic.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
So speaking of that data being there in real time, you were really intentional about the accessibility of this product. Can you tell us a little bit about how that works and why it works everywhere and to the people who need to have it?
Yeah, so one of the biggest things I get asked when I'm doing these demos, or I'm talking to CFOs or CTOs of companies that are looking into these types of systems, is, well, hey, we have a lot of land that doesn't have any service to it. You can't make phone calls, things like that. The app itself works without any sort of connectivity. So as long as the user, so the crew boss or manager, or whoever is trying to access the app, is signed into the app prior to entering that location of dead zone, for lack of better terms, the app works naturally. So it'll generate everything that it needs to. So the clocking in of individuals, the bins, buckets, pieces, breaks, notes, pictures, anything that you do, it'll store everything locally on the device. And then when the device gets into connectivity, whether it's data, LTE, or cell tower, or it reaches Wi-Fi, then the information uploads into the cloud and that's how the information gets to our servers.
Nice. That's very convenient. Yep. So the company has grown pretty quickly over the last year and a half. Can you tell us about what it looks like today and what your thoughts and ideas about what that should look like maybe a few years from now? Yeah.
So, when you start a new company, especially in a startup situation, it's all about trying to get the cash flow and trying to get to make some good revenue. And
profit.
To be able to make some profits so that we can continue to grow. And so when I came on board, there were like roughly about 3 to 4 growers using the app, but nobody was paying us. 2 of them being principals of the company. When I came on board, everything became real, and we started charging whatever our fees are. And today we're 100 plus clients. So in less than 2 years, we've reached a pretty good amount of market space, specifically in the Washington, Oregon border area. We do have clients in California and Arizona and New York, but not very few compared to Washington. So we're growing. We grew very fast, and now our conversations have pivoted and moved to what's our next market. Where are we trying to go next? We're talking about Michigan. We're talking about California, Northern California specifically, and trying to hopefully stay focused in what we know best, which is the tree fruit industry and some of the hops and some of the blueberries. But we'd love to expand into every produce area. But we also want to be tactical about how we go about the growth.
Not grow too fast. So before we go to a break, you mentioned something about cost in that last answer, and I know that you have been really conscientious about how you price this product to make sure that it's accessible to farmers. Can you just tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so one of our key focuses was always making sure that the barrier to entry was limited, so people wouldn't be afraid to try the product. So price is something that you talk about a lot with the principals and the owners, and everybody wants to make more money, so it gets tricky sometimes, but we made it so that when the growers or our clients are quote unquote making money, or they're in their peak seasons, specifically harvest, it doesn't pressure them as much to pay us more. So the way our model works is the more employees you have working for you, the more you pay us. When your employee count goes down, you pay us less. So so that way we kind of ride the wave with the client. Every grower peaks out in terms of how much they're going to pay us during harvest. Specifically, cherry growers have the most amount of people during cherries, and then it just really dies back down to kind of reality. So we try to ride the wave with the client. We try to make sure that when they're hopefully making some money, that it doesn't squeeze their pocketbook as much as when they're not.
Right. Perfect. So when we come back, we're going to take a deeper dive into technology and agriculture and how those things are working together. We'll be back after the break. Stay tuned. Hi, everyone, and welcome back. So, Alex, here in Wenatchee and in this valley in general, agriculture and technology really have had a pretty good partnership for a long time, and I think maybe a lot of our viewers might not even realize how cutting edge our ag industry is here in Wenatchee, not just with this app that you have developed, but we have the Tree Fruit Research Center, and there's a lot of blockchain and AI technology happening that's really sometimes starting in agriculture before it even moves out, into other parts of the world, and I just think that sometimes that really goes unnoticed in our area. So with that, how has the ag industry changed, over the past decade or so?
Yeah, so that's a really good point, and it's pretty cool to see that's happening here in the valley specifically. I think Wenatchee has a lot of really intelligent people, and a lot of people are moving back. A lot of my friends are moving back that decided to take off and go to college, and they were like, Wenatchee will never give me what I want. Based on us growing up here, it was kind of a smaller valley and kind of tight knit and not a lot of tech going on. But the last 10 years is just you've seen a lot of things come up that it's just unbelievable how much technology has really gotten into the farming industry or the ag. I think the biggest reason for it is because a lot of my generation, the 25 to 40-year-olds that grew up with technology, are starting to realize that they need to bring that back to their farms. They need to bring it back to the valley. So everything we learn out there, we kind of want it to be here now. So I think just having a younger generation starting to take over some of these businesses, our whole thing is working smarter, not harder, working remote, having a quality of life and not being stuck somewhere where we, doing paperwork. We don't want to do paperwork. No. We want to do things on the fly, on a phone, on an iPad, on a laptop. So I think technology is really taken off in the ag industry big time.
How are some other ways that you see farmers integrating technology? I mean, we've talked a little bit about your app, or quite a bit about that. Do you see that in other areas as well in that community?
Yeah. So, I mean, I network a lot with other like-minded individuals, specifically in the ag tech industry, just because we're going after a lot of the same clients. We're trying to service them. So we like to share ideas on, hey, how are you getting in the door? What are the things that people are looking for? There's companies out there, good friends with somebody that works at Semios. They do a lot of pheromone, a lot of disruption of, and I can't really speak to it that well, but Semios is a company that comes to mind for me. Ag Otter, kind of controlling where people spray and what got sprayed. So just being able to track things, a lot of weather related technology, soil, ground temperatures, moisture, vehicles, tracking things, and everybody really just wants data is really what it's come down to, is everybody just wants to understand what the data that's coming out of their farms is. Because
I imagine having that information, really we talked about those razor thin margins earlier. So if you're not wasting product, and not just the waste of the product and the cost of the product, but the impact of that product on the environment. So if we're only putting things where they need to be, and we can really sort of micromanage those conditions.
Absolutely.
I can see how that might be a huge benefit.
And just using data to make educated decisions. That's what we hope we're giving the growers and our clients. I think everybody that's in the tech world is really that's what they're striving for, is just making sure that we can help these small growers or large growers just truly understand and make sense of what's going on in their orchard, in their fields.
Instead of using the Farmer's Almanac, you mean, for data?
Yeah, trying to modernize everything as much as possible.
So what are some other benefits do you see? You know, we talked about small growers. I mean, I think some of us can really see the benefits for really large growers more readily. How is some of this benefiting the smaller growers? I know you are keeping your price point down. I feel like some technology maybe is out of reach for that smaller grower, but how are some ways that they can benefit from some of this new stuff?
The small grower is squeezed even harder because they don't, one, they may not have the funding, or two, they don't have the land to build housing for the guest worker programs that are out there now, the H-2A stuff here in Washington specifically. So whatever we can do to help them minimize any of these issues and shortcomings, specifically on the labor side for us, is really important. Like I said, I can't say this enough, labor is the #1 most expensive thing that a grower has to deal with on a day-to-day basis. It's going up, it's not going to go down. So anything we can do to help them manage that is really, really important to us. And our whole thing is, you know, 2 of our principals are quote-unquote small growers.
Oh,
you know, they have less than 500 acres apiece.
Oh, wow.
So they're considered kind of a small grower. Those are a dying breed. You know,
Right.
they're essentially, they can't keep up with the laws, they can't keep up with managing their people, they can't afford the technologies. So whatever we can do to help them keep their farms. Some of these people, it's legacy stuff. You know, it's things where it's been passed down for generations to generations, and it's hard. It's really hard for them emotionally to let go. But some of them, you know, go into debt and go into bankruptcy and don't know how to handle it. And so any tool they can use to stay modern, to stay up to date, to avoid lawsuits, things like that is really key.
Excellent. Alex, do you have any parting thoughts or comments that you'd like to share with our viewers before we close out for the day?
Just, you know, stay tuned to what's going on in the industry, specifically with technology. There's so much stuff out there now that you should take a look at. Do your homework. Make sure that you, when you're looking for a product or a service or you know, software like ours, really make sure you know what you're asking for. Make sure you know what you need. There's a lot of companies out there that have, you know, 6 widgets that come with their program, and it's like, well, I don't need all 6. I just really want to focus on 2. So just be really, really cautious about getting into the wrong programs. So just make sure you do the demos and take the time to understand where these companies come from, what their values are, and you know, make sure you make educated decisions before you jump into technology, because there's nothing worse than buying something or paying for something that isn't going to work for you,
Right.
and then you never use it, and then you just get jaded and you don't try anything else.
Nice. Very wise words.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Alex, for being here
Yeah,
and
thank you,
sharing that
guys.
with us. And Field Clock, ladies and gentlemen, check them out. And please join us next week when we have Stacy Lukensmeyer actually will be sitting here in the hot seat, and she will be talking with the new owners of the Mercantile, which is a new co-working space that's getting ready to open up in downtown Wenatchee. So we'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Since 1999, GWATA has served as North Central Washington's Tech Alliance. As a 501c3, our mission is to bring people and technology resources together to create a thriving community. Through our work, we aim to inspire, engage, and connect.